One of the most common questions I get when I'm teaching handstands or just from people who have heard about my journey of dealing with stiff shoulders is, what stretches should I do to open up my shoulders so I can get my arms overhead? Typically, the answer is no amount of stretching will help you overcome poor shoulder mechanics. So today, I'm gonna show you what I mean by that and some simple exercises that you can do to help you get into a good overhead position with an open shoulder. And then I'll finish up the video with some simple stretches you can do as well. To fully understand shoulder mobility, we're gonna have to take a quick anatomy tour. Don't worry, this should all be pretty simple. So, when we're talking about shoulder mobility, we're really talking about three different joints. We're talking about, of course, the ball and socket shoulder joint. We're talking about the shoulder blade, because the ball and socket connects to the shoulder blade, okay? And then the shoulder blade connects to the ribs. So we're gonna talk about how the ribs are moving, okay? And this will all make a lot of sense really soon. Let's look at what a good open shoulder overhead position looks like, and then we'll talk about why it's good and some patterns that you may default into that aren't so good. So a good open shoulder would look something like this. And I don't have the best shoulder mobility, which should be encouraging because I've made a ton of progress. I used to have very stiff shoulders, so anyone can do this if I can. So here's some key points we're looking at. Notice my ribs aren't flying forward, right? That's default number one. When a lot of people lift their arm overhead, their ribs pop forward. So what I like to pay attention to is the sternum. We need to pull the sternum down or in, just depending on which one makes more sense to you. The sternum needs to come down or in. And then what we're looking at is the angle between the sternum and then the arm. So if my sternum is facing forward like this, then even if my arm is overhead, my shoulder isn't open. See that angle? So pulling the sternum down, now you can see that angle start to open. That's rib cage, number one. Number two is the shoulder blade. Now, when we're reaching overhead, we want the shoulder blade to move from protraction, meaning the shoulder blade moves forward and around the rib cage, from protraction to elevation, up, straight up. Now notice the difference here. If I try to lift my arm but keep my shoulder blade down, I'm squeezing as hard as I can. That's as far as I can go. Now watch this. I'm gonna reach my shoulder blade forward and up, and look how big of a difference that makes. Now let's take a look at some really easy exercises you can do to work on these shoulder mechanics.
Okay, first exercise up is the wall push. You're going to lean against a wall and place your hands somewhere around chest level. First, protract your shoulders, push them around the rib cage as far as you can, and then start to sink the hips back as you open the armpit towards the ground. Continue to press your shoulder blades forward and up, and that's what's gonna drill those great shoulder mechanics. You may or may not feel a stretch here, but you should feel muscle activation in the upper traps, those muscles that connect your neck to your shoulder. And what I love about this exercise is it's so scalable. You can walk your feet back and lean harder into the wall to make this more and more challenging over time. And always remember with each one of these exercises to pull the sternum in and down. Next up, we have the mighty downward dog. Now, the down dog is one of the best exercises for shoulder mobility if you already have good shoulder mechanics. But for those of us who don't naturally have that, we need to really focus on some extra things to make the downward dog work for us. Now the key to this exercise is starting out with a really good protracted position. So start out on your knees, protract, and then start to push your shoulder blades up towards your ears as you open your armpit towards your legs. Now my hamstrings are pretty flexible, but if yours aren't, just walk your feet back. We're not even thinking about the hamstring flexibility, we're just focusing on the shoulders here. And if you feel like you've mastered those first two, let's move on to the inverted pike press. It's the same as the other two movements. We're going to focus on those good shoulder mechanics, but now we're going completely upside down by elevating the feet. Focus on pulling the sternum in and pushing those shoulder blades up towards the ears as hard as possible. And what I love about this progression of exercises is if you get to the end and you can do this exercise with open shoulders and good mechanics, then you can do a handstand, and you just gotta work on balancing now.
So now you know how to move your shoulder well, and we've strengthened the position and the muscles that go along with an overhead position. So now let's do some stretching. This is where stretching can help you. And I like to make things as simple as possible. So we just got one stretch, but it is my favorite stretch. If you see me on Strength Side, I talk about hanging all the time. And the reason I like hanging for shoulder mobility, shoulder stretching, is it'll stretch whatever you need stretched to get into an overhead position. So for some people, you may feel this in your lats. Some people may feel it in the pecs. It'll go to wherever is limiting you in your overhead position, as long as you're hitting those correct shoulder mechanics. Let's go hang.
Now, I like to have everyone start with their feet on the ground or on an object when learning to hang. So if you are hanging from something where your feet are dangling, just put a chair under you. Now, I'm sure you guessed it. We're gonna focus on shoulder mechanics first. So pull that sternum down or in and reach your shoulders up towards the ears, and then slowly allow your shoulders to open as you drop under what you're hanging from. What I love about hanging is that the stretch will go to wherever it needs it, because it will force you to go into a good open shoulder position, and any muscle that's preventing you from doing that will come on stretch. So you may feel your pecs in the armpit, you may feel your lats on the outside of the armpit. All of it is good. Lean into that stretch. And if you're having trouble allowing those muscles to relax, use the contract relax method. Pull your shoulder blades down as far as you can, and then let go of those muscles that did the pulling. That can really help you sink into the stretch.
The best way to add these into your regimen is to work on them 2 to 3 times a week. A good time would either be before you're doing something that requires some overhead mobility. Maybe you're doing some overhead pressing or handstands or whatever, or right after a workout. A great way to do this is to pair up one of those patterning exercises with hanging. So you would do one exercise and then hang, and then an exercise and then hang, and they reinforce each other. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions about any of the topics discussed here, please add them to the comment section. Like, comment, subscribe. If this intrigues you and you want more, I will definitely make another video about how to work on the spine if you are dealing with that forward head, sitting on the computer posture, which definitely plays a role in your shoulder mobility as well. And for real, guys, who needs it?